Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you can be very safe and well. Thank you for joining us during a non-Tottenham Hotspur game night. We've said that a couple of times already this season. Delighted to be welcoming back three of our regulars to the Last Word on Spurs. Nice to be able to say that. If you're listening to the show for the very first time, you can find us on iTunes. We're on Spotify and Audio Boom. We're across a range of different audio platforms. We're of course on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And of course, we are also live on YouTube. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us as we discuss all things Tottenham. And we've been lucky with Tottenham because we've never been starved for content this season. And it's safe to say, here we go again. It's Groundhog Day. Delighted to welcome back on the show. You know it's serious when Lee McQueen's on a midweek edition. You know, say it's kicking off. So delighted to welcome back our crazy train, Conte of the man, the Conte crazy train, of course. Lee McQueen's in the house. Lee, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thanks, Rick, and the lads and all the viewers and listeners as well. Yeah, it's all kicking off, isn't it? Who would have thought? Who would have bloody thought that we're talking about COVID again? It is absolutely decimating not only to football fixtures and sport and so on and so forth, businesses, people's lives, families, health. I mean, honestly, it's a nightmare. I know we're going to get into the football side of it tonight, but you always say it, Rick, stay safe out there. And it feels like we need to start staying safe again. So please be safe, everybody. And I'm sure we'll get into it.
Oh, man, on that point, Lee, I must just say before I bring in, obviously, our next two regulars, I just want to, again, express our sympathy as to what's going on right now at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. It's a shame some of the opposition clubs haven't done that today so far. And, of course, UEFA as well. Obviously, Spurs are in the midst of a real COVID crisis. And our thoughts from everybody at the channel goes out to all at the football club and anybody suffering right now with coronavirus. It's, like I say, dangerous. We wish everybody a safe and speedy recovery. Back also on the Last Word on Spurs. Always tough talking, always Frankie Major's in the house. Frankie, how are you?
Not bad, Rick. I'm very disappointed. Echoing what Lee said, obviously it's come back, hasn't it? And it's a shame. And I have a bad feeling. I don't mean to be negative, but I don't think this will be the last club, or will be the last club, that will be affected by this, by what I'm reading and seeing. And we've got another weekend off, which, I mean, you know, you see all the banter on social media. You know, Spurs not playing has saved my health, etc. But I, for one, am absolutely gutted, particularly after the Burnley game. This is what we look forward to, regardless of what's going on with your family, with your social life. The Tottenham weekend is always the best, and we haven't got a game again, and possibly not next week as well. So very disappointed. I hope, obviously, everything at Tottenham is as good as it could be, and the players and staff are getting better if they are ill. And hopefully, fingers crossed, that we get a bit of fortune moving forward, because we haven't had a lot over the last few weeks, have we, Rick?
Oh, man, no, I totally agree, Frankie. And I was on the phone to, obviously, one of our good friends and part of the Last One on Spurs, Anthony Costa, this morning at about 7:30 in the morning. It's the calmest I've actually seen felt Ant over the phone. So this break, I think, is doing good for his own his own heart rate, all things Tottenham. Although he's gutted like you, Frankie, there's not many games on at the moment. And again, I share your concern, Frank, that we may be here discussing this kind of subject for a while, unfortunately, again. Also, delighted to welcome back to the show Jason McGovern's in the house. Jace, the soap opera rolls on about Tottenham, of course. If it isn't snow that's putting games off, unfortunately, it's COVID. Can you sum up what's going on at Tottenham Hotspur right now? Is that bad, Jason? You want to talk? It's that bad. Let's unmute Jason.
Unbelievable to be back where we, kind of where we were a year, 18 months ago. And you're right, having lost the games at Burnley, I think, we don't want to fall 2, 3, 4 games behind everybody else in the Premier League. But players' health comes first. You're right. I think the biggest thing today is the lack of any respect by UEFA and Ren and such to wish the players well, or which is the most important thing. And to see Ren saying, "Well, we're going to turn up and play anyway," is unbelievable. And you feel like some of the coverage from then is all to get their hands on the £500,000 for winning the game that they seem to want more than anything else. But the safety of players has to come first, and that's where we are. But the flip side of that, I suppose, we can watch the Formula One at the weekend now and be fully concentrated on that instead of having to watch Tottenham on one TV and the Formula One on the other.
There'll be a lot of Spurs fans out like me.
That is a bonus for sure.
It depends. I say there's a lot of Spurs fans out there like me that have got absolutely no interest in that sport. Or I must say, that sounds bad, Adrian. I'm going to offend. I'm now going to offend both
Well,
Lee.
you won't be able
I'm
to
going
watch
to
the
offend.
test match because that'll be all finished by then.
I was about to say, I was going to massively.
In Australia,
I was
mate.
going to massively offend Lee, Frankie, and Jason Montgomery. So I've got absolutely no interest in the cricket. Taking Spurs away now is just so difficult from me because I say at times, that is almost the escapism. And I say we do the shows, of course, weekly or twice a week. So don't fear. We'll still be here producing some form of content for you as always. And Mark on. Go on, Lee.
I was sorry, buddy. Sorry to totally interrupt you, but I was just going to say, Peter Sims on screen there says, Conte would be quietly happily to have games in hand. I'm just thinking Romero, really, really bad injury, bad injury. But now these games in hand, he might get a game against the likes of the Burnleys or the Brightons so far, whatever, depending on when they get rescheduled. So look, maybe there is a bit of a silver lining in there, but I just worry that everybody is talking about fixtures and pile up, and we're going to get into it, but it's the players' health. Antonio Conte was visibly upset. You could see that they're worried. And I've had, like a lot of people now, I've had COVID and it's horrible and you do not want it. If you haven't had it, then fair play because you don't want it and it's not good. The thing is with these tests, Rick, is that just because the test says that you've got it, it don't mean to say that you're sick. But it also doesn't mean to say that that you're not going to get very sick as well. And what was clear that was going through Hotspur way is it was just like domino effect. Two or three people get it, and then all of a sudden everyone else gets it. And you think about it, everyone's cuddling each other when that third goal goes in against Norwich. They're all over each other. They're sweating. They're like, poor. Of course they are. But
And the fans.
Exactly. These are all the things that we're told not to do from a COVID perspective. So if one of them players, which we know that first team squad's gone down with it, so one of them players has got it, it is more than likely, which is what we're seeing, that everyone else is going to get it, and it's a bloody nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. So yeah, thoughts with that. Hopefully they're okay with it, because if they're not very well with it, some of them players won't be back for a while because it can really knock the stuffing out of you.
Yeah, and as we know, as things stand at the moment here on the last one of Spurs, of course, Spurs' game against Stade Rennais is off. Obviously, the game against Brighton at the weekend is off. I think I would say now that safely Leicester is a massive doubt, bearing in mind the days in between of Spurs having to potentially try and get back and train. And that's even before you consider that although there's already, as we understand at the moment, 8 first-team players and 5 coaching staff testing positive for COVID-19. When you're listening to this or you're watching this maybe tomorrow morning on your Friday morning stroll, that number could well have doubled. It could well have tripled. Who knows? So Spurs are in a situation now where it is a concern. It's a massive worry, obviously for life in general as well. Let's come over to you, Frankie. I mean, as things stand at the moment, as we've said, there's going to be a massive potential backlog of fixtures here for Tottenham. What was your thoughts on the way, Frank, it's transpired over the last few days with that Rennes fixture and the build-up to how eventually that game did end up getting called off?
Only Tottenham Hotspur Football Club could have a game snowed off and then a COVID outbreak just weeks later to put us what we had 3 or 4 games in hand, which we've been talking off air about the fixture congestion as it is. Potentially, if we get through the West Ham game, there'll be a 2-legged semi-final in the League Cup. We've got to squeeze these games in somewhere. I think somebody mentioned on Twitter earlier, potentially it will be with the break that we now have, which is sort of February, where you get sort of pretty much 10 days off, which obviously we'll probably have to schedule a couple of games into that sort of period of time. But only this football club, Rick, we've been decimated by the international breaks more than any other club in the world this season. We've now been decimated more than any other club in the world by COVID. And we're the only Premier League club to have a game called off for snow when it wasn't our responsibility. It was an away game. So, we are cursed in many ways. We don't tend to get the rub of the green. If things are going to be as complicated as they possibly could be, it will happen to Tottenham. I'm not sort of saying that we're a victim, but it's just a fact. And the most shocking element in all of this to me, and from what I've seen, is the lack of class and respect from opposition clubs. Rennes in particular. I know there's obviously a big sort of French-British political divide happening at the moment, which I believe is probably at the root of this for the way that they, as Lee said, they didn't even wish the players good luck or all the best in getting healthy and getting back to normal, which is a disgrace. But I've never seen as many West Ham and Arsenal fans cry and moan on social media. Again, no other club has had 20 cases at the minimum across coaching staff, first team players, under 23s, who we all know either train next to the first team or with the first team. So I just cannot, I can't get my head around the reaction to what's happened. If you ask the players and Antonio Conte, they would want to build on the wins that we've just had in a clean sheet.
Totally agree.
And we've started to see things take shape on the pitch, tactically, players getting their confidence back. This is a disaster for Spurs. This is not what we wanted. Yet apparently that we've got the Premier League in our pocket. We're favoured by the Premier League and UEFA, according to many that I've seen today, and it's just absolutely shocking. This is not positive for Spurs in any way, shape, or form. No. And we now face going into potentially, if Leicester's cancelled, going into Liverpool and West Ham back to back without proper training or any match rhythm.
Totally agree.
So it's been a disaster, Rick.
I do what's funny as well, the fact of being favouritism from UEFA or the Premier League. I mean, I'm not going to bore people, the victim tag with Tottenham. I mean, we go back to Lasagna Gate and, the Pedro Mendes goal at Old Trafford. I mean, you can go there and there's been so many occasions where you feel Spurs have been outdone and outwronged, and you just feel now the cheek of people.
Penalty.
Oh, there's so many. I mean, there's so many we can go through. We could do a whole hour on it, but I won't. we could do so many on it. I totally agree. But Jason, I want to come round to you because, I mean, it was I do feel the tipping point for me was personally that Antonio Conte press conference, because he was so emotional. And we'll play some of that out for our listeners on audio in one of the breaks because, he said that he's scared, scared of what that might do to the cam, what it might do to his family that are involved. I mean, has it amazed you and stunned you just how long it took to get the game to be called off by UEFA? Spurs will come on to it, obviously put that statement out. Now we're talking 24 hours ago around this time where they said, they won't be going ahead with the game. At that time, UEFA hadn't agreed it. Spurs came out with that statement solely. Has it stunned you, just what's happened in the past 24 hours, 40 hours with Tottenham and the way in which it's been communicated on all sides?
No, I wouldn't say it stunned me. I think with UEFA, they obviously have their rule about if 13 players can play. I mean, we saw a game the other day go on in Portugal, didn't we, with Benfica, where it kicked off 11v8 or something. I mean, that's a proper Portugal's league. I forget who it was, Benfica v somebody, and you got 11v8 at kickoff, and they had no subs or whatever, and the game.
And weren't 3 players goalkeepers as well in that?
Something like that, yeah. So, I suppose the rule is if you can't field 11 players with a goalkeeper and you've got under 23s, then that's because the problem that you'll get is that there will always, unfortunately in football, there'll be someone that pushes the rules. And it may well be, I don't know, it could be Grasshopper Zurich or something that suddenly think, do you know what, we'll tell people we've got COVID and we'll get the game called off. This is the precedent that's set. And I think that the unfortunate thing with Tottenham is if you call the game off too early when there's only 3 people got it, that clearly can't get the game called off. And so you've got to reach that minimum number. But then with the cases doubling and things, it's very difficult to get the timing. I don't think you can make an announcement like that 4 or 5 days in advance, the way that things are going. That's the unfortunate thing for UEFA. But it was obviously clear when Conte gave that press conference yesterday, when he said that, I think he said at that time 6 members of the squad had it and another one's gone down with it. What you don't know is if, I think Christian Romero is allegedly one of those that's got it, well, he wouldn't have played anyway, would he? So the fact he's got COVID has no impact on the Rennes game because he's out injured. So, you've got little nuances like that in amongst it all. So I wasn't surprised, but we've reached the right decision. The Premier League, obviously, with the weekend have taken an act quickly. May well be that Brighton themselves said, "Well, look, we're not particularly keen for a club to come here where cases are rife, and somebody might well be negative before the game, but positive the day after." And so Brighton have taken that. I think that helps the supporters' point of view. But It's not an easy. I mean, we had it last year with Fulham, didn't we? Where the game was called off. I think on the day of the game, wasn't it? The Fulham game with the Premier League game.
That's right. Yeah,
Christmas last year.
Yeah,
that's right. Like 3 o'clock in the afternoon for an 8 o'clock kickoff. So I think for COVID things, you're going to have to accept that kickoffs will be will be incredibly late, or maybe 24 hours, or may even be the day of the game itself.
I was just thinking, this is what Paratigi's been doing on his phone. It's like me and my mate Steph, we used to manage the Middlesex Arms back in the day, right, in South Wycett where I grew up, Sunday League team. You'd rock up in Sunday League. We must have all done this. And like you'd be looking around and think, they've only got 5 players here. Like, what we're going to do? So you're both on the phone going, "Are you all right? How you getting on? Oh, do you fancy you can't play football today? We've got to fulfil the fixture." That's what Paratigi's been doing on the phone this week, trying to fulfil the fixtures. I mean, it's absolutely mental, isn't it? It's madness.
Yeah, I mean, also, Lee, I mean, when you consider that Spurs, what they've got to come, obviously now Burnley and Brighton to be rearranged. We've then got a packed league schedule with potentially, please God, we beat West Ham, got a League Cup semi-final 2-legged affair. We've got the FA Cup, which we've got Morecambe in, of course. And then Spurs finish second in that Europa Conference League. They'll then have a ECL round of 32 over 2 legs. But I must just caveat that by saying at the moment, as we record live here, that Ennis are currently getting beaten 3-0 by Vitesse, which I think what we understand at the moment is, correct me if I'm wrong, Spurs, Jace, what was the analogy earlier? We've got to worsen.
We have to match their result by 1 goal less. So if they win 3-0, we have to win 2-0. They win 6-0, we've got to score 5.
I think at the moment that's doable, isn't it?
Well, and I have to make Rennes have already. We have to impact this. Rennes have already qualified, so the chances of them coming and playing a full first team. Well, the way they've reacted today, you would think they have taken the first team. The way they've taken the news so poorly, but I don't quite know. Yeah, I mean how this will work now because they go on their winter break, as I understand, on the 23rd, 22nd, 23rd. So we're now the 9th of December, and we've already postponed, obviously, Brighton. Leicester now is looking massively doubtful. Lee, do you expect this game to actually go ahead? Do you think Spurs will play it, or do you think they'll end up forfeiting it?
Look, I mean, I don't know what the implications are. I mean, I tweeted out, I think we should forfeit the game when it first broke a couple of days ago. And there was a couple of people, to be fair to him, said, actually, if we do that, there's implications. Paul O'Keefe, friend of the show, was one said there might be some implications on that. Whether or not that's more financial implications or not. But the fact is now that we didn't forfeit because it's been postponed. So we're trying to rearrange the fixture. It's quite interesting that if, again, this is a massive if, right? But if Leicester, the game doesn't go ahead, our next game is going to be the 19th, right, against Liverpool. I mean, thanks for that. Yeah, brilliant. Straight back in against Liverpool. Everybody that's isolating is at different stages. But if we just take it as for the purposes of now, the big outbreak happened on the 8th of December. Everybody's now going to be doing 10 days isolation. So they're not going to be back in training before the 18th of December. And if you've got COVID, like if you've done a test and it says you're positive, but you're completely fine, you'll be all right to train, like do some home. People saying, oh, they're still going to be training at home gym. And let me tell you, if you've got COVID, right, bad, you ain't going to be training. Like you won't be. You can't even bloody breathe. So it depends on how serious they've got it. Nonetheless, no one's going to be back in training properly before the 18th, back at Hotspur Way, and we play Liverpool on the 19th. So we get over that fixture, probably get ruined now, won't we, by Liverpool? But we get over that fixture. 3 days later, we've got West Ham, as you've just said, 3 days. There's no gap. And then Rennes are on their holidays, from a French perspective, because it's 23rd. So when are we going to fit the fixture in? Like, unless we cancel it, we postpone Leicester and Liverpool, right? And we fit the Rennes game in on the Liverpool day. That's the only thing. Well, otherwise, UEFA are going to have to relax their rules and play the game later than the 23rd. I can't see how it's going to happen, lads and listeners.
Yeah,
I think it's more.
The option would sensibly be that, in theory, you could push the West Ham game back to that first leg of the semi-final and play the semi-final the week after, and then there's that midweek between the Chelsea and the Arsenal game, or the Arsenal-Chelsea league game. So you could have semi-final, the quarter-final 1 week, the semi-final the following week, the semi-final the following week, and then you're up to speed. But the problem is, I think, with the League Cup, we saw Liverpool and Aston Villa in a quarter-final last year, where Liverpool were playing in a tournament the other side of the world, and they still might play on that day.
They won't move it, James. They won't move it, and West Ham won't do it either. I don't think West Ham would agree to that.
Thing to do is to move it, but West Ham won't. Well,
and they're in Europa as well, so they've got themselves to think about, which is fair enough to them.
Yeah,
but the problem is, as we've seen today, it doesn't appear that many other clubs, barring the actual Premier League, want to sort of help us in any way. And
not at all.
What I foresee, and people have said it in the comments, we've already said, potentially, if this can happen to Spurs, this can happen to any club.
Of course it can.
So we've probably not seen the end of this. So I hope all these other clubs are looking at this and thinking, if that's us, how would we want the other clubs to react to our situation? I hope everyone can be as accommodating as possible, because we're all in this together at the end of the day.
Spot on, mate. And I think that's the scary thing for me in a sense of, this feels like it was back in March 2020. That's how it feels. It feels like when everyone started to think, hang on a minute, we can't fulfill our fixtures. If, for example, 3 other Premier League teams, just as an example, get what Tottenham have got right now, they won't be able to fulfill 3 or 4 fixtures on the trot. So now that's 4 clubs that won't be able to do it. So it's a real serious situation, to be fair. Not just on the health side of things, we talked about at the top of the show, but actually for fulfilling the fixtures and getting the football being played, which is, at the end of the day, that's what everybody wants to do. Everyone wants to be safe, but we all want football. I just can't. I keep looking over at my double screen, right, because I've got the fixtures in front of me. I cannot see how we're going to get them in. And I know Oliver said, Oliver Freeman said they'll have to play after the 31st, maybe early Jan. As Jay said, there's still no room for that, because if we beat West Ham, we've got the 4th and the 5th.
A two-legged.
Is the semi-final. So we play Watford on the 1st, and then 2 days later we play a semi-final in the Carabao Cup. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everyone, that we get there. And then after that, we play Morecambe in the FA Cup, and then we play the second leg of the semi-final. So it's literally, we are playing football from that Liverpool game. We are playing every 3 days. That's without the Burnley, Leicester, Brighton, and Rennes postponements.
It's insane, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, Frankie, do you see in a way in which, at the moment, UEFA, they haven't changed their stance, so that game has got to be played by the 31st. Whether they're open to, changing that is another question at the moment, which we're unaware of. Do you think they'll have to be flexible on that?
Well, they're going to have to be, but another element that we haven't mentioned is the fact that Spurs were part of the 6 that tried to break away from UEFA. So will UEFA have that in the back of their minds? Would they want to accommodate a club that basically stuck 2 fingers up at them and said, we're going to go and do our own thing? So these are all, again, elements that we've got to factor into these decisions. But at the moment, we can all speculate and guess, but nobody actually knows. The main focus at the moment is obviously making sure that everyone's healthy, and then trying to get some sort of structured training back together once this passes. Now, it's all very well and good individual programs at home and keeping fit and so on and so forth, but it's not the same as being all together on the training ground. And obviously the training ground's been shut for 3 days? The only hope we've got is if by the end of the weekend on Sunday, that there's another round of testing, things have got better, there's more negative tests, and again, it passes. But possibly that's not going to be the case. So who knows, Rick? It is, let's be totally honest, it's an absolute mess at the moment. And this is why I can't get my head around anyone saying that this is in any way, shape or form a remote positive, because it's really not. No,
I agree with that.
Alakar's having an absolute worldie, by the way, in the Mura goal. I think he's faced 9 shots on target and he's only conceded 3. So, if we do want to get the fixture back on, he's doing us a favour at the moment, because if it was a cricket score, like a lot of the comments are saying, it'd be academic, wouldn't it? Because there's no point.
Or the boxing terms of knockout, right?
You mean we're lucky they haven't got Galini in goal then?
Do you know what?
Well, as you said, JC, definitely didn't catch it, did he? Jesus Christ.
Do you know what? At the moment, as things stand there, Frank, you mentioned it earlier, just to kind of bring everyone up to date. So, obviously, Spurs have closed the first team area at Hotspur Way, and that will remain shut for the next 3 to 4 days as a minimum. And now I've seen in the comments already, people are speculating that Spurs have now got up to 19 cases. Again, that's a figure that's out there. By the time you listen to this tomorrow, it might be more. Who knows? And I think, like Lee said earlier, the problem you've got is that everybody is starting the recovery at different times. And again, that then impacts how Conte, I think he said it a couple of days ago, he's working with players that are non-positive. By the time he then comes off the training ground with them, they're positive. I mean, how can a manager expect to try and get a squad ready to go when, he doesn't know from one day to the next the players that he can work with? Conte actually said, at the moment for him, it's a serious problem. It's a pity because during the press conference, he'd like to talk about football and the next game, but it can't. It's been dominated by COVID. He said the situation is serious. Every day we're having positives. Another member of staff is positive tomorrow. Who? Me? Another player. I want to speak about football, and now all I speak about is COVID. I think this is not a good thing for you, me, our fans, for all of football, I think. Stade Rene's statement on the match against Spurs, they came out at the time and said the match wasn't officially called off by UEFA, and they stuck to its decision to play. I just think it's just stunned when that came out, Lee, coming over to you, just not even wishing the players...
No empathy, Rick, at all.
Nothing at all. None. Does that not stun you, Lee? I mean, regardless of where Spurs are in the standings as a club, and as Frankie mentioned earlier about the Super League and whatever, I mean, surely there's an understanding and sympathy as to what is going on at the moment in the world, right? Taking out the football equation.
Well, absolutely, and I think people forget that. I think that we a lot of people, including myself, are fed up with having to navigate different ways for COVID and just isolation and masks and all of the things that everybody's fed up with. It's been around a long time. It's like Groundhog Day. So I get that frustration, but you've got to have that empathy, as Frankie just said, around look, at the end of the day, they have got a disease that is a virus, that is really, really tough on people. We've just heard of Kimmich not being able to play again until 2022 because Kimmich has got a heart condition caused by COVID. So these footballers have got families. They are just the same as all of us watching and listening.
Of course,
and actually, they want to have Christmas with their grandmas and their grandpas and whoever else, their newborn babies and whatever. And if they're getting COVID, they can't possibly or they can't properly go and do that. So that human element, I think we do forget. Sometimes we do forget. Like, we're all passionate about our own clubs. I think Ren got it wrong in that way. I think they were just looking ahead for what was, I think Jason nailed it on the head. Was it €500,000, 500,000 euros getting through for the next round? They want to bank that and go on to the next screen, essentially. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, bad form really from them and everyone else that is just thinking about getting the footballs on, the fixture on. We all want to do that, but you've got first and foremost, our heroes that we see every week scoring goals for us or whatever, they got families that they might get COVID to. So it's a bit of a worry, isn't it?
No, another massive point.
Football works differently, doesn't it? I mean, a lot of the comments, as Frankie's talked about, of other people saying, it's a positive for Tottenham and all that. The rivalry and the tribalism of football fans, when it becomes football related. So you've got Everton fans last week booing Virgil van Dijk because he's got a link. Not being funny, we ourselves, we're cheering when Jack Wilshere gets stretchered off at Tottenham with a broken leg. So we've been probably more than one of us around this screen tonight was cheering when Jack Wilshere. But that's the tribalism of football, where all normal feelings for human beings goes out the window. And we'd be sitting here tonight, and let's be honest, if it was happening down the road, we'd be half having a football chuckle about it ourselves. Oh, like Aubameyang's got it or whatever, and probably we'd have a different view to it ourselves even tonight rather than the queue. That is football, the tribalism, and that's where as supporters you've got to sometimes look at yourself and think, hold on, this is a human being that's possibly ill. So I can remember the first going right back to when COVID started. The first ones that had the problem was Arteta, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think Mikel Arteta got it, which was when the first lot of Premier League games got called off. And I can remember lots of people saying, oh, well, if anyone had to get it, I'm glad it's Arteta. Well, we were doing it then just as other teams do it now. You can't forget that, in fairness.
Frankie,
no, I agree. Sorry, I was just going to say another massive factor to think of is say we play Rennes and Brighton, and say some of these players with COVID are fine, because we all know it affects people differently. There might be players who are absolutely fine but have tested positive. What do these fans want? Do they want us to play these 2 games, and it spreads to Brighton, then it spreads to whoever Brighton plays next, and then potentially you're looking at the league getting shut down again? Is that what we want? We've got to be careful. I mean, you can have your views. I've seen lots of comments that, you have your views on COVID and all the rest of it, but the fact is, if there's positive tests, whatever your ethics or thoughts behind what it is, whatever, there will be cancelled games. There'll be cancellations. So we have to be very careful with the spread of it and containing it. And this was the only way forward for us as a club, and the Premier League as well. If we're being honest, it was the only sensible thing to do, was to shut the training ground down and have a reset. And that is, in my opinion, the right thing to do.
Yeah. Just out of interest, Frankie, the point of Rennes' statement, when they're accusing Spurs of lacking fair play and unilaterally calling off the game, it just blows your mind, doesn't it, Frankie? How they've come to that conclusion and actually have put that out in a statement? Is there no one that actually checks these things? Like a HR department that looks at that and just thinks, that can't be right before it goes out to the main public, surely?
Well, obviously not. And I cannot get my head around the admin of Rennes and some of the statements that have come out today. It's shocking. And the fact of the matter is Jason's right. It's definitely due to the fact that they've lost some money here. I mean, they're second in the French league. They've won the group already. They're having a good season. They have no reason to be bitter. And I mean, there must be something else behind it. I just don't get it. I really don't understand. If I were their fans or I was their owners, it wouldn't bother me that much, because ultimately, if they do replay the game in their winter break, they can send the kids over. Doesn't matter to them, does it? They've won the group. So it's been a very strange few days. And I've seen some things that I've just thought, do people really think and say that? But they do, Rick. It's just the reality of it. And they've just shown themselves to have absolutely no class whatsoever throughout all of this.
Yeah, and you mentioned a point there, Frank. They've won the group. Again, for them, it maybe feels like a bit of a pointless trip to London. They're second in League One, of course. They had their winter break from December the 22nd to January the 8th. So equally, it's natural that Spurs, they want to maintain their knockout hopes. And it does feel at the moment that it's going to be a tough mediation job for UEFA. But we are going to go for our first break of the show. Taking you into that break, you're going to hear Antonio Conte today live on BT Sport, that was giving his reactions to where things are currently at with Tottenham. I must just say again, when you hear this, it may be old news. There may be even more cases. So again, as we've said at the top of the show, our thoughts with everybody at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, staff, players, everybody connected. We wish everybody a speedy recovery. And like I say, hopefully everyone gets back on their feet very soon and makes that recovery, because we love the club, we love the fans, we love the players, and we need to see Spurs back playing soon. And again, anybody suffering with the disease, we wish you all, like I say, all the very best. For a watching audience on YouTube, 300 of you watching us live, so much as always on, like I say, a non-game night. As we understand, Spurs today proposed to UEFA to reschedule that Europa Conference League game against Stade Rennais to December the 15th, which would essentially rule out the game against Leicester City being played. However, the French club had absolutely no intention of accepting that date being offered by Spurs. Can't think we're surprised, right? I don't know. It's so bizarre. And then obviously we've had a statement from Vitesse ahead of their game this evening. They said that if Spurs and Rennais is moved to a later moment, there'll be a significant disadvantage for Vitesse from a sporting point of view, because both teams are highly dependent on each other's results. I mean, Lee, we'll start with you. What do you make of that from Vitesse? Can you understand that point?
A little bit. I mean, I know what they're saying. It's like, I think Chris Cowden, one of our own, said it earlier in the WhatsApp groups, like the Premier League games last day of the season, they all kick off at the same time, because of that whole, permutations and all that sort of stuff. So I kind of get where Vitesse are coming from here. I mean, they're currently 3-0 up. He's had another shot on target, these fellas. So Zakala's keeping them at bay, which is doing very well. 11 on target now, only 3 down. So I do understand a little bit where they're coming from. But if they go out and do their job today and do it well, then they won't need to worry, because if they go and score another 2 in the last 9 minutes, the Spurs are not going to beat Tottenham. Are not going to beat Rennes 4-0. They're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. So, and given the fact that where we are with COVID, and given the fact that most of our team's decimated, and we're probably going to have to play some of the kids anyway during that replay, I can't understand why Rennes wouldn't accept the 15th. Like you say, though, I mean, Tottenham have offered the 15th. clearly the Leicester game's not going to go ahead. Maybe what we think it's easy. I think there's some comments on the screen earlier that we could actually put the Premier League games back towards the end of the season when it's less congested, and therefore it's easier to get the European game in kind of if we substitute for a Premier League game. But so I'm surprised actually that we've put that in. But if we have, that would make sense. That would make sense. And again,
but Lee, Leicester have got to agree to this. This is the issue.
Yeah.
And why would they?
Well,
why would they just?
Do you know what, Frankie, though? Haven't Leicester got, I think Leicester had 7, Frankie. You answer, I mean, come in on this, Frankie. I think Leicester have at the moment got 7. Are they?
So 3-1. Here we go, boys. Yeah, they're 1. There's 3-1.
3-1.
My football predictions just put it up there on the screen, but it is confirmed. It is 3-1 to Vitesse. So we now only have to win. Was it, Jace? 1-0. We only have to beat 1-0.
2-1 or 2-1.
2-1.
Yeah.
But
as long as we win by 1 goal, yeah.
Frankie, on that point of Leicester, I mean, as we understand for them at the moment, again, this may change again depending on cases rising there, but they've got 7 at the moment. Would it not suit Leicester if they would like to move that game as well, potentially?
Well, they played tonight, so I don't see how. I mean, this is obviously a case-by-case basis with the Premier League, but it would be hard for Leicester to have reason to have that game moved for COVID reasons due to the fact that they put out a team tonight. And again, I'm just speculating, and these are the conversations that obviously they'll be having with the Premier League and the powers that be that make these decisions. But that one, it's tricky for me. I can't see the Premier League if both teams can field the team, and this depends on obviously what happens at the end of this weekend. If we do get lots of negative cases back, then why would the Premier League want to move or take that fixture away and have the bother of moving it somewhere else? Just for us.
Unless we do the Liverpool scenario, which happened last season 4, Jace referenced earlier, whereby we play 2 games in 2 days. And
in one night, or in one night.
Yeah,
2 games in one night.
We played under 23s against Rennes, and then we played, the first team against Leicester.
And that's not unprecedented, is it? So
even that we had a similar scenario last year, if you remember rightly, where we played a playoff game, and then it was a Carabao Cup game, and then we had another game, and then we were playing Chelsea or something. We ended up with 4 games in 8 days. Remember, we actually got lucky because Orient pulled out with COVID, didn't they?
Yes.
That's right. Leighton Orient pulled out the competition with COVID, and we ended up getting a free day. But I think we played Chelsea 2 days after. We played, I forget what was a Premier League game, because Eric Dyer famously ran off for a loo, didn't he? He had to play. He had to play them back to back, didn't he, Eric Dyer? So it has been done, and there are lots of precedents for it
against Chelsea.
That's right.
I think you're right. I think potentially, depending on obviously what happens over the weekend, I think there could be a case of a couple of games in 2 days, literally back to back. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Out of interest, guys, Brighton, which obviously has now been postponed. Now, we had their team news earlier in the week. I don't know if you obviously, again, at the time, referenced this. They had, quite staggeringly, up to 8 players potentially out of this game. I'm trying to get that list up now, but obviously you'd include Lewis Dunk, who has been ruled out until the new year now. With regards to Brighton, I mean, does it make a difference at all on this, Lee? Let's come to you. Having these games pushed back, of course, Burnley had a number of significant injuries. Many felt that for Burnley, that was an advantage to them to have that game pushed back. And Brighton, I mean, we read off some of the names here they have got out for that game at the weekend. Lewis Dunk, Shane Duffy, Adam Webster, Jeremy Sarmiento, Adam Lallana, Danny Welbeck, Leandro Trossard, Steven Elzati, Joe Veltman. I mean, that's a number of players for Brighton also out. I know we've all said on this screen that doesn't, Jason, I can see you rolling your eyes. We'll come up to Jason in a second. But Lee, does it at all from a taking the COVID element out of it from a footballing perspective? Does this benefit Tottenham having these games delayed and almost knowing the job you have to do when it comes to that Premier League table later on in the season?
I don't think it benefits. I don't think it benefits us at all. I think that I'd have quite like. I agree with Jason and with Frank. I was looking forward to playing the games. We just started to get some momentum. We ain't conceded a goal. We're at 4 Premier League games played under Antonio Conte. We've conceded once. We've won 3. We've got some good momentum there. Brighton was the next step. I said to you on the phone, didn't I, the other day, Rick? I think Brighton was a stepping stone between what we've been playing, as in the Brentfords and the Norwiches and the whatever the lower level teams, should we say, with the most respect, but that was a stepping stone going into the Leicester and the Liverpool game. It's actually, and the West Ham game. It's actually a perfect game for us because they've been
The
playing
trajectory
well.
there, Lee. The trajectory
Totally,
of quality
100%,
there was
100%.
perfect for us to step up a
Perfect.
little bit by bit in the test we were facing. It's a great point.
Totally, 1,000,000%. And you want that momentum. The people have got confidence of coming back. Some scoring goals again. Lucas Moore's on the score sheet. We've got people assisting, getting involved. Regulon just being out. Sessignon coming. It was feeling good. And also as well, our away form has actually not been brilliant at all. Certainly in Europe, hasn't it? It's been absolutely woeful. So actually, this was a good, nice stepping stone test for us. Brighton, and also we know Brighton will keep the football. Probably more than us. I think that I still can't get quite get my head around the Norwich game. I haven't spoken to I haven't been on the pod because it's my anniversary, but I can't get my head around the possession on the Norwich game. And it's almost like he was doing it on purpose to prepare us for later on in the season when teams want the football more than what we would. I don't know. I know that Brighton will have more of the football than us at the Amex Stadium, and I was looking forward to that challenge. So I don't think it benefits us taking that game away. I didn't think it benefited us taking the game away from a Burnley perspective, because I'd rather have points in the bag than have games in hand, because you know where you are. I mean, let's be honest about it. I know that there's games in hand. I think Pete Simmons said earlier, let's be 5 points behind the leaders with 10 games in hand at the end of the season. But the reality of that is that when you're looking at the league table, we might end up being in the bottom half of the table, come the Liverpool game. Although we've got 3 games in hand, but that's where we might be. And you just think that don't look good and it don't feel good. So the momentum, the upward trajectory, as Frank, you just said, and everything goes with it, that's what I wanted. I think winning breeds winning, right? So we keep winning, and Brighton would have been perfect. But now we've got a break.
We joke, coming over to you, Frank, about the January window.
We won't be in the bottom half, Lee, because Leicester are 11th and they're 6 points behind us.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay,
no,
good.
The lowest we could possibly be is 10.
Yeah. But come over to you, Frank. In terms of we discussed January and the need to obviously invest in the squad, and people think that it's not strong enough. Is there that argument that with a number of these games being pushed back potentially to beyond January, depending on how the fixtures fall, do you see any advantage where we have the opportunity to strengthen the squad in places where that does give us the ammunition to face these teams where we are that little bit stronger? Of course, Romero out injured at the moment. Harry Kane not in the greatest of form, you would safely say, to be honest with you, and that's being fair. Do you see any at all potential advantage to have these games after January when we've had a chance to improve the squad?
The only advantages, and I want to be balanced here, the only advantages would be that we have the potential to strengthen. So if these games are moved back to around that sort of February time, the January transfer would have closed. We possibly could have done some business, and the squad could be stronger. That's one advantage. And I've come on here and I've done Chris's show as well, and I have said recently, I know he has been sort of contributing during games with his passing and so on, but I've also said, and I've been vocal about this, Harry Kane does look a bit leggy at times, and he looks like he does need a month off. And that's just genuinely from what I look live at the games, following him, looking at his body language, the way that he's running, trying to hold the ball up. So there will always be some positives, but I truly believe the negatives outweigh the positives because of the reasons Lee's just said. The way that the fixtures fell, there was a step up slightly by bit as the fixtures progressed during this period. After Liverpool, West Ham were in unbelievable form for West Ham particularly. They've just beaten Chelsea. So those 2 games were sort of the peak of this step up. If we're doing like a flow chart here, which I'm doing with my finger, but
no, we know what you mean.
The negatives will always outweigh the positives. But again, in cases like this, there will always be a couple of positives. Perhaps Harry Kane to have no match games in his legs for a couple of weeks might benefit him, and he can do his solo training or whatever. And obviously strengthening the squad, if we do replay the games after the January transfer window, would be another positive. But just to reiterate, there are more negatives than positives in this situation by far. We do not know the repercussions of the COVID cases within the individual players as well. As Lee mentioned, Josh Kimmich, he's been out since November. He's had a lung infection. How will this have a knock-on impact on the players that have been affected? So we don't know all of those variables yet, do we? But it's, again, just to sort of summarise what I've said, yes, there'll be a couple of positives, but far more negatives, Rick.
Jace, over to you. Obviously, at the moment, as we understand, that Leicester game is next for Tottenham. If that game is to go ahead. Now, at the moment, when we look at the diary, that would be next Thursday. That's a week today, on the 16th. At the moment, Jace, bearing in mind the training ground is shut and will not be opening for at the earliest next week, and that's on the basis that, again, you're keeping away those players that have already begun that isolation period, which I understand is still 10 days, Lee? 9 to 10 days, that isolation period? Or potentially even longer. Who knows?
I think it's 10 days, but...
I mean, Jace, can you see that Leicester game going ahead as things stand? And if it doesn't go ahead, how concerning is that, bearing in mind what we've got to come from a footballing aspect here? I have to keep referring to this from a footballing aspect. As we've said there with the boys, obviously West Ham, Liverpool to come. That's a big jump in terms of the teams that we have been facing over the last few weeks.
Yeah, without a doubt it is. But I mean, Liverpool are a jump up from anyone, aren't they?
That's fair. Yep.
And let's be honest, you'd probably look at that Liverpool game even now and think, what's our record? 1 win in the last 16 against Liverpool.
Yeah, I think it's not far off.
You know,
I mean, it's been horrendous, isn't it? Yeah,
for me, the Liverpool game wasn't going to be. The Brighton and Leicester games were much bigger, more important games to me than the Liverpool game. You know, I know people will say that you can't write game or you can't afford to just write games off, but those top three are streets ahead of anyone at the moment, including ourselves, and they account for 6 games a season, and we play 32 other games a season. So let's concentrate on the other 32 than worrying about Liverpool, Man City, and Chelsea games in that respect. But Leicester aren't in great form themselves. You know, as I've just said. You know, Leicester are 6 points behind Tottenham, having played a game more. They're in the bottom half, Leicester. They've lost tonight. Leicester, they're now in the European Checker Trade Trophy. So, you know, Leicester aren't exactly in great shapes. We're seeing Leicester as an image, but when you think of the car crash that we've had this season, and we're 6 points clear of Leicester having had a game less, that just tells you what a mess Leicester have been in this year. So, you know, they've just got done by Villa at the weekend. So, and Brighton have been playing good football, but they're not. You know, Brighton
haven't won in 10 games. I don't think they've won in 10 games. Or 9 or 10.
Yeah, win us in 9. Win us in 9. Right.
So, you know, they're the 2 games that more concern me than being in shape for Liverpool. But the West Ham one is obviously a big one because it does give us a chance to get a big London derby win. It does give us a chance to look forward to hopefully a cup final that we were in last year, and who knows, by the time that cup final comes round, if Conte's been able to galvanise that squad, maybe that's our best hope of a trophy this season. You know, at the end of the day, it's a home quarter final. You'd bite your hand off, wouldn't you, for a quarter final of the cup being at home? Whoever the opposition is, could be Chelsea, could be West Ham, could be Arsenal, could be Liverpool. That's all you can ask for is a home draw. So that for me is a much bigger game than that Liverpool game. Whatever happens in Liverpool, if we nick a point or we get a win, absolutely great. But the focus for me, that West Ham game is a really big one because that will have a much bigger impact on our season than that Liverpool game, whatever the result.
I totally agree on that.
Yeah, sorry, Rick. That's interesting, Jace, actually, because when you're looking at, we've been looking at the fixtures, obviously, because of the situation that we're in. It is only 3 days between Liverpool and West Ham, and regardless, if we had a fully fit squad, we'd have been sitting there previewing some of them games, thinking, right, who's going to play against Liverpool because we've got the West Ham quarter final. What's a more important game? So it's a very interesting point on that. I mean, we're just talking about West Ham. They've lost tonight. I think they're just about to go down 1-0 in the 94th minute.
It's finished. It's finished.
Oh, it's just finished. So they lost 1-0. But they played a completely different, I think, a different 11. So
they're
qualified, aren't they? Qualified.
Yeah, qualified.
They were kids tonight. They were all kids, literally.
Yeah, completely different team, didn't they?
Kids at one old age pensioner, wasn't it?
Noble play. Noble kids, basically. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he did, yeah.
But out of interest, Lee, as Jason says there, I want to ask you on that point with Liverpool, where that game falls potentially in amongst near that West Ham fixture. I mean, I'm of Jason's opinion. That West Ham game to me, I know we laugh and joke about being a cup final. That's a massive game for Tottenham as a football club. I generally believe that. And I know this goes back to, I think, why Antonio Conte was brought into the football club. We was in all 4 competitions. I think we banned that Europa Conference League, but I think he was also brought in to improve the results in there and hopefully get more out of. We've said, the Europa Conference League being a development tool. Lee, you said at the start of the season, unfortunately, it's been the opposite. We've had to play a lot of the first team in there. Not that we wanted to do that, but that West Ham game, you do feel that has a real impetus on the season, doesn't it? Because if you do win that, and as Mourinho said, we pocket a semi-final, as the time he said about going into a cup final. I just saw Jason look up there and said Mourinho. I just got the death there now.
But what I was saying, Rick, when you said we've been forced to play better players in this. We haven't been forced to play it. We could have played a development squad in every game. We've had to though, Jason.
No,
we haven't. We haven't. We've chosen to change its priority. For me, it should have been a development competition from day one.
1,000,000% agree.
But would we have
and even if we lost the first 3 games, it would have still been a development competition.
I totally agree.
There's not enough upside for anyone to disagree with Jason's point. There is not enough upside because the end goal is you get a Europa League spot and you do not get any recognition or credit. In fact, for Spurs to win their first trophy, hypothetically, and for it to be that new 3rd tier, can you imagine? It would just be a stick to beat us with. And it would be no point whatsoever. So
remember that?
It is. It's the checker trade vase. That's exactly what it is. And Jason's hit the nail on the head. It should have been an experimental team from the off with kids.
Completely agree. And when it didn't go well, and this was the thing with the club or with Nuno or whatever.
Yeah, I think, but Nuno was gone. Yeah,
sorry, mate. Well, I was going to say when it didn't go well in the Checker Vase Trophy Europe, where let's give it some respect. The conference
it's been downgraded it now. It's gone to the Vase. It was the Checker Trade before.
When it didn't go well with that first development squad, we started filtering in. I think it was against Mura at home, wasn't it? And Kane come on and scored a hat trick. Great that he scored a hat trick. Great that it was Kane scoring goals like that. But the reality is, what did it do for everything else? It didn't become a development squad team. It became a first team. And then all of a sudden, we're playing our first team. And all of a sudden, Kane's playing every game.
Yeah.
And it's mental. Like you got no backup striker at the football club, right? You've got Kane, who's had all his problems in the summer. Not problems, but all the speculation in the summer. He hasn't had a rest. He's been over at Florida, wherever he's been, the Bahamas for a couple of weeks, but he hasn't really had a proper rest. Didn't really get a proper pre-season. He's got the mind of him losing as England captain a final on penalties. He could have been a legend. You got to remember this. Everybody watching this and listening to this. Harry Kane could have been the captain of England to win the first major trophy since 1966. Like, we still talk about 1966. We might not have won another trophy since for another 30, 40 years. And everyone would have been saying Harry Kane lifted it. That is going to affect the bloke. So anyway, got all that. And then all of a sudden, he's coming and playing every single game in the Checker Trophy because we haven't got a development squad set up that is the club believe in or that we should have been playing.
And just quickly, we didn't have a
in the game. If we'd have done what we said we were going to do or should have done at the beginning, we do not have a big enough squad to compete on all 4 fronts. And you can say, you arrogant tosser, Lee, because we need a trophy. I'm not being arrogant. I'm not disrespecting. I watched the Napoli game against Liverpool earlier. With the way Napoli celebrated, Leicester, what I'm talking about. But the way Napoli celebrated getting through was amazing. Like, you can see the respect they've got for the trophy and the competition. But Tottenham haven't got the squad to compete. And where we need to be competing is in the domestic trophies. Do you know what I mean? And trying to get back up that league so that we can get Europa League football next year, or dare I say, top 4 in Champions League. So you can't be playing the likes of Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg every game in the Checker Trophy. You just can't do it.
We haven't got the squad, and we also didn't have the manager capable of putting out a team of mixed and match or kids and getting a result. That's huge. We did.
But do you think, Frank, as well, though, I was sticking with you, Frankie, do you not feel with Nuno he was using that Europa League, that Europa Conference League, almost to build rhythm because he was getting such poor results in the Premier League? He needed like an uplift in his competition to get results, right? You just felt that was the case.
Yes, he used that. If you see how we started in the competition, it was Dane Scarlett, it was Brian Hill, it was Galini. And then when things started, the pendulum started to swing against him and the momentum shifted against him, he started to implement more what we call first team players and the big hitters started to feature more in this competition. And it was wrong. And I'm going to disagree with Lee slightly there. I don't have any respect for this competition at all. I don't. It's a pile of crap, if we're being totally honest. It's a third-tier European trophy. I would have rather brought back the Cup Winners' Cup, and all the Cup winners go back into a European competition.
That either.
No, I know, but and maybe give a Europa place to, you could have adjusted that. But I don't have any respect for this competition. It's been, it is nothing but a hindrance.
And they've made a pig's ear of it themselves by this thing that if you finish second in the group, you got to go into a playoff for the knockout round. We've had a playoff to get into competition, and then you've got to get a playoff to stay in the competition. I mean, what a mishmash of a. I mean, I don't know how many listeners we've got that can remember, but we used to have the Intertoto Cup.
Yeah,
that was their original choice for a third-tier competition. I think we lost 8-0 to Cologne when Alan Pardew played for us, and that's how serious we took it then. But this is almost like they've tried to bring back a mishmash of what was the Intertoto Cup, and it was a disaster then, and it's a disaster now. And what will be interesting is Leicester have now been knocked down into it. We'll see what type of team Leicester field and how big a priority it will be for Leicester, because they've won a Premier League, they've won the FA Cup. They've got the winning mentality I bet Brendan Rodgers isn't going to take it too seriously either. He'll think,
do you know what he said, Jace?
Competition.
I watched his post-match interview after the game, and he said, I don't even know what it is. That's what he said. He said, I don't even know what it is. He said, I've been preparing for a runners-up or a winning spot in this group and to progress through the Europa. I don't even know what it is, so I have to look into it. And the way he said that and his body language, he looked like he was embarrassed to be in it.
As we should be, as we are. As I am.
Right.
So therefore, on this basis, chaps, I'm assuming that we wouldn't be disappointed if we couldn't fulfil that fixture. Although at the moment, has that game ended now, Venice Mora, as we speak right now? I think that has.
It's finished, it's finished. 21. We've only got to beat Rennes 1-0, which not being funny for all of us, for all the people that don't want to be in this competition. Breaking news: we will beat Mora 1-0. It's going to happen because you can't throw a fixture. You can't go into a game and think. I know sometimes it looks like Tottenham do throw fixtures, right? I'm sure they don't
I can tell you Spurs will want that gate receipt money as well. I can tell you that safely. We know the club will want that money. They will. I mean,
if that game gets played, there is an opportunity for us to get through now. There is an opportunity. Look, and the thing is, the only thing I would say about the competition, right? To Frank did this earlier in terms of bringing balance, is that when you get through to the latter rounds of it. It's a little bit like the Europa League. All of a sudden, you're like, "Oh, hang on, right?" It's like Carabao Cup. If you draw, I don't know, Man City away in the first round of the Carabao Cup, right, or the third round, or whatever it is that you come into, you think, "Oh, here we go, what a nightmare." But actually, by the time you're into the semi-final, you're thinking, "Oh, we can have some of this." And it's the same with the Conference League or the Europa League, the Europa Conference League. When you get through to the latter rounds, but. You can't. The size. Somebody said earlier. I think it was a brilliant name, by the way. Lee, I think it was. Said we have got a big size squad. It's not good enough, right? And that's what I mean, right? The reality is you can't go on all fronts with the players that we've currently got. I don't think it's right. So you have to prioritise. And look, we're 2 points off a top 4 place right now, sitting in the league with a game in hand. We might end up having 15 games in hand, right? As Peter said earlier. But look, we are 2 points off the top 4 place. We win our game in hand. We're above West Ham. And like Jay said, it's an absolute shit show of a season. We've chopped our manager. Kane scored 1 Premier League goal. He's only had 1 assist. Son's only got 2 assists so far. I mean, it's a nightmare. Lucas has got 1 assist. We're not scoring goals. We've let in all the goals. We don't run anywhere. We are in the top 4. I mean, are you having a laugh or what? I mean, how's that even happening? So, look, I just think that we have to go for it, don't we? We just have to go for it.
Interesting. Now, Alpesh is on the screen. If we get through, could we play Leicester next round? I'm not sure if you can have segregated. I'm not sure how that works in terms of.
I don't think we'll be able to play them to the quarters. I don't think we'll be able to play them.
I think it'll be like all those European competitions where country protection comes in.
Yep. Yeah. So I guess we'll see in terms of the course of the Europa Conference League.
Just come back to because I took the panel off on a right tangent there about passion about how rubbish the Conference League is. But your original question was to me about the Liverpool game and what's kind of more important.
We need to answer that. Yeah, what is more important?
That's my fault, right? But verbal diarrhea, you know what I mean? When you look at the fixtures, like Tottenham, Liverpool, Tottenham, West Ham, Tottenham, Palace, right? That's obviously 3 home games on the trot. When you start looking at the Palace, and then it's Southampton, Tottenham, Watford, Tottenham. If we play Liverpool and not prioritise, but if we play Liverpool, but our prioritisation essentially was the West Ham game, that gets you through to the semi-final. If we lost against Liverpool, by the end of that week, we could still be in the top 4 because we're playing the likes of Palace, Southampton, and Watford. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well, but losing 3 points against Liverpool based on beating them for 16 matches and all the facts that Jace just said, and then having them 3 games in the league virtually straight after, well, within a week, I'm looking at it here, but within a week, right, over the Christmas period, to get 9 points out of a possible 12 in a short space of time, you're still going to be up there in the league. Do you understand what I mean?
Are you saying to me that you'd rotate for the Liverpool game, Lee? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying, that you'd rotate if we had to for the Liverpool game, play our strongest team against West Ham, and then try and play our strongest team against Palace, Southampton, and Watford? Is that what you're sort of saying?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's horrible when you say it like that because obviously it's Liverpool at home, and I want to beat them. Of course, I do, but I want to get through to the semi-final of the Carabao Cup, and I think that could be more defining for the setup that we've got than 3 points against Liverpool, because we've got 3, 6, 9 points that is very, very achievable within the week after we play Liverpool.
And West Ham are more beatable than Liverpool as well.
I think if Liverpool, but if Liverpool goes ahead, Lee, I don't think it's a case of rotating. It will be whoever is the fittest.
At the moment, you would feel that way, don't you? That's very true.
If Sessegnon hasn't had COVID and Reguilon has, then Sessegnon will have to play that game.
Yeah.
If Hugo's had COVID and Galini didn't, you'd have to play Galini in that game. I don't think it's a question of rotating. It's just a case of we have to field and if that means Ndombele and Lo Celso is your prime midfield, that would have to be the case. You can't help that. It's just going to be the 11 fittest players that can take that pitch in some sort of shape. It may well be that you have to play Emerson and Doherty. Have to play 2, one of them on the left, one of them on the right. It's just that's how it's going to be.
I quite like to see Bergwijn start because so he can right the wrong against which happened. What was it this time last year? Wasn't it that we played Liverpool?
Yep.
We were top of the league and we could have stayed top of the league by beating them. And he missed it.
I know it's funny,
missed
but
three one-on-ones, Lee. 3 one-on-ones he missed.
I know he missed. I know.
But Joe, it's funny. There's something again. You look back. There's something very defining that happened that night. We'll never know what happened as to that game and how it changed that dressing room and whatever happened that night. But that was the beginning of the end of that season, wasn't it? That Liverpool game. You can't put your finger on what happened, but something happened in that dressing room where it just led to Spurs completely falling apart. It just disintegrated.
If you think about that game as well, like you said, we had 3 one-on-ones, hit the post. We had a couple of good chances, and we conceded, like, what was it, a 93rd or 92nd minute header from Firmino, from Bobby, right? So that whole thing about we was well in the game and we could have won the game to actually losing the game and then literally losing the plot. And the following games after that, we just fell off a cliff, didn't we? Literally, we never recovered. I was actually hoping that our cliff has already started and now we're climbing back up it. That's hence that momentum, and that's why this COVID thing is going to hurt us. It will hurt us in the end.
Yeah, I agree. We are going to go for our final break of the show. Take you into this break, you're going to hear from Charlie Haffenden from the a Brighton podcast that very kindly recorded a piece for us in the event this game was also not going to go ahead. He discusses the impact of that potential postponement and what it meant for Brighton as well. They had, like I say, a number of injuries building up to the game. And I say, when we return for our listeners and audio, we're going to give a final 5-10 minutes on just essentially what is the priority for Tottenham in the next few weeks. So for our watching audience on YouTube, nearly 400 of you watching us live, thank you so much as always. Frankie, as things stand at the moment, of course, Spurs' next fixture will be, and again, this is obviously a massive doubt, I have to emphasise, next Thursday against Leicester City away. I understand, Frankie, you was going to be going, I think you told me you were going to go up there, right? Was that the plan?
3 tickets showed up today. I've got them there.
Yeah.
Never been to the King Power before. It was going to be my first visit for 2 of my friends for like a little pre-Christmas thing. And it's not going ahead by the sounds of things. Possibly it will, Rick. Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think we'll know a lot more at the end of the weekend about the coming week after that.
What now, Frankie, is the priority for you as a Spurs fan looking at what's to come? We mentioned there that Spurs now are in a position, we know the result, they'll have to beat Rennes by 1-0 to qualify for the next round of the Europa Conference League. I'm trying to say this as serious as possible. After what we've done, after how we've downgraded this competition,
don't we? We just have to
win.
Just
win.
Not
We just have to.
Not
Is it
1-0,
just a win?
we just have to beat them.
We just have to beat them.
We can beat
So
them
anything,
4-3, can't
right?
we?
Okay,
It's just
right. So anything now, right? So as long as we win
against Rennes to win, which you'd look to do, and then you're in the next round.
Right. Well, I think on
you're
that
in
basis,
the playoff round.
So again, so on that basis, then, Frankie, we're going to have another game in store for this Europa Conference League, a playoff game. West Ham as well in the cup final. I know how massive that is for you. What's the priority for you, Frankie, in the next month or two with Tottenham? What would you want to see Spurs put all their eggs in the basket to?
It's a very, very good question. Somebody in the comments has raised a very good point about obviously progressing in Europe helps our coefficient points moving forward. But that doesn't matter to me because from what I believe, finishing top 4 would get you more points. And you'll have to fact check me there. But listen, in an ideal world, it would be a League Cup or an FA Cup and a top 4 finish. That would be for me, obviously, that would be the perfect season from where we're at now. If you had to ask me to choose, it's a balance because ultimately we've got to get this monkey off our back regarding no trophy since 2008. It's, again, something that's become a bit of a mental block within the club. And we're reminded about it from our rivals quite regularly. So a trophy is needed. However, on the other side, we are only 2 points off the top 4 with a game in hand. Outside the top 3, I know Manchester United have changed managers and arguably have got the best squad out of the best of the rest. But we are in the mix. It's impossible to say that we're not. We are challenging as it stands for top 4. So it's
isn't it? I love saying
it's exciting, but it's hard because if we get back in the top 4, we get more money to spend on players, and we are if we win the League Cup or we get top 4, getting top 4 attracts better players. That's just a fact. Players want Champions League. That was why Pau Torres and Jules Koundé turned us down in the summer, because we didn't have Champions League football to offer them. So from that point of view, getting back into the Champions League financially and to build the squad and progress to getting back to challenging for titles, that's more imperative. However, we all know, and we talk about every time I'm on the show, we will talk about in private, this football club needs a trophy more than any other club. So it's such a question, Rick. It's I can't answer it because it's tough. But if you ask me, and I'll probably get a lot of stick for this because I've been banging on about the trophy situation, if it was one or the other, and my answer is going to be I'd rather get back in the top 4, personally, than win a league.
And you'd sacrifice everything for that, Frankie?
Yes, I would. And then go again when we've got the better squad, because we've got the Champions League attraction, we've got the finances, we've got the better players, then we can try and do the top 4, challenging for the league and an FAL League Cup. But as things stand, this football club, to get back to challenging, needs to get back in the top 4.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I say Stefan Blois on the screen there says, trophies breed success. Think of the Conference League as a springboard to better things. Jace, going to ask you on that, bearing in mind your thoughts so far this evening on that Europa Conference League. Is that a springboard to bigger things, in your opinion, Jace?
It's a springboard to being in at the deep end, mate. You have the springboards at the deep end of a pool, and that's exactly what it is. A cesspool to jump into with 2 feet. That's what it is. That's the springboard. No, the Carabao is huge. The Carabao is huge for us because...
Biggest game of the season, Jace?
We've been humiliated in every London derby this year, or the main London derbies. Beat West Ham at home. The likelihood is you play Chelsea or Arsenal in a semi-final. Beat one of them. Go to Wembley. The chances are you have to play the other one in the final.
Yeah.
So the chance to beat West Ham, Chelsea and Arsenal, or West Ham, Arsenal and Chelsea, and lift a trophy, what a fantastic run. And shut the 3 up, the 3 that we get most jip from the trophy.
Great
you
point.
You can take those 3 out. And then the big thing for me is the final is February. The end of February, we play that final. Gives you all of March, all of April, and most of May to purely concentrate on the Premier League. Because if we're still in the FA Cup And people say, well, we've got to win a trophy. We're in the FA. If you've won that cup, you can think, do you know what? It's not a disaster if we get knocked out at Wolves or knocked out at Newcastle or knocked out even at Rotherham or bloody Rochdale or whatever.
Oh, it is.
Because we've won the trophy. The trophy's in the cabinet. And we've done those 3 London clubs on the way. So we haven't got to worry about the FA Cup then. We can purely concentrate on the rest of those Premier League games, ideally with a few new signings and with a squad with a bit of belief. The trophy drought end, I'm sure that would lift our confidence. And you think, right, full focus on a top 4. And I honestly believe if we could win that Carabao, we'd have an even better chance of finishing in that top 4 because the lift and buzz that would give us and the focus can just concentrate on that and nothing else. And then, don't tell me you're going to play in the Springboard Checkatrade Cup if you've got the Carabao Cup on the mantelpiece. Nobody would be in the least bit bothered about it.
That competition, the one that's been downgraded tonight.
You can't really debate that. Really,
no.
what you just said there. I think you're spot on. I think that's coming back to. I think we're all agreeing, right? I if I can just be so bold to answer that question as well, I want top 4. I've always said it, even when we was doing the Love Sport shows back in the day. I was saying we need top 4.
Even with a squad, Lee.
Top 4 is really important, right? Because if you get top 4, you're basically doing 50-60 million into the coffers, right? So Daniel and the board and everyone's happy, right? If you've got that, you've also got the ability for Paratici and Conte to go and reform their squad in a much better way. To the point Frank made about Pau Torres and Koundé and all these other players that might or might not come, Vlahovic, anyone else. That's really important as well. And also, finally, we want to be at that top table. Everything that runs around that we've got, stadium, everything that everyone gets bored with, keep saying, but that is built to be at the top table. So we need to be at the top table, and that is when we was most happiest. The memories that we've got of the Ajax game and the VAR situation with City in the Champions League and Son scoring. This is where we need to be. This is where the club needs to be. So I would look at top 4, but I agree with Jace completely on that Carabao Cup one. If you go and beat West Ham a few seasons ago, whatever, that's their cup final, whatever, they did turn us over, to be fair. But now they are a good side.
They are a good side.
They are a good side, and he's got them playing brilliant football. They've got loads of confidence, and they've ruined us already this season. And I want to get back at them. It's at home, and I want to batter them. I want to batter West Ham, and I want to get Arsenal, Chelsea in the semi and batter them, and I want to batter Arsenal, Chelsea in the final. Exactly what Jason said, and that is miles better than playing some, playing Vitesse Arnhem or whatever it might be, or in the Europa Conference League. That's
and also, it's not just attracting players, isn't it? I mean, I know he's public enemy number 1 this season, but the whole business around Kane in the summer of 100%. Wanting to leave to win trophies, if you've won that Carabao Cup and you've finished in the top 4. And you've got Conte as your manager. You're telling me he's pushing to leave still? He's won his trophy. He's playing Champions League football next year, which he wants to play. He has a world-class manager. I mean,
I agree. I did say that in an ideal world, I'd take a trophy in top 4. But the only reason I gave the top 4 answer is if I had to choose between either, I just think Kane would. Again, I know he wants a trophy, but would Kane prefer a League Cup or top 4? I don't know because I don't know him, but. I think you're right, Jace. I think if we did win the Carabao Cup in February, it gives you that confidence. City have done it. Chelsea's Mourinho used to do it, didn't they? They'd win that and then they'd win the league.
I honestly believe we have a better chance of finishing the top 4 if we win that Carabao Cup than if we don't. Yeah. I just genuinely believe it because if we don't, then the pressure comes, right, we've got to chase an FA Cup game. And you'll have the quarter-final of the FA Cup on a Saturday and you think, look at the fixture list we've got. Man United away Tuesday night. Oh, God, now we've got to prioritise one or the other. Win that Carabao Cup and you think, don't matter if it's FA Cup quarter-final, get knocked out of it, Man United's priority, because we've already got a trophy in the bank. It's just clear view then. Premier League is all that matters without any shadow of a doubt then.
It's interesting we all say about top 4 because I think when you look at the squad, though, I mean, this squad we know, I don't think it's good enough to compete in the Champions League, is it? Really, you look at the you look at the way we've been doing the last few years, just in the Europa League, and just even putting out the lens we put out. I mean, we've got to be honest. Even this season, though, when we put out 11s in the Europa Conference League, although they haven't been, 11 of our best players, 6 or 7 of them have been, and just how poor we've been. I mean, you do feel between now and the January window and the summer window, if Spurs were to get in the Champions League, and again, this is hypothetical, of course, the amount of investment it's going to take for Spurs to actually be able to compete with those competitions. I mean, Lee, just coming on to you on this debate very quickly, it's going to take a lot of money, isn't it, to get Spurs up to that level where they actually feel they can compete again for the Champions League, if you see where I'm coming from.
Well, yes, I think that some comments in there now, live comments in the chat about Manchester United are way ahead of us from a squad perspective, and you probably wouldn't disagree with that. But we are sitting above them at the moment, and they, by all accounts, they've got a lot of easier fixtures over the next kind of 10, 12 games. I think it stretches for them, so it's huge over the next kind of 2 months to see where we're going to be. If we do get into the top 4, which is a big if, but if we do get into the top 4, yes, we're going to have to improve the squad. But I think all of us know that we're going to have to improve the squad. I stuck it on the WhatsApp group. I clipped Thomas Tuchel in his interview after Chelsea lost yesterday. No, sorry, drew. And I thought it was absolutely outstanding. It was such an elite manager at his best of what he was thinking. And he talked about attitude and behaviour. And he talked about fine margins. Jason and I've always talked about fine margins on the show, going way back when. And he's talking about 5% and 10% drop-offs. And if your attitude and your behaviour is not right in a particular game and you drop by 5%, you're going to get punished and you're going to get beaten. It was such an elite manager's way of thinking. And I loved it. I know he's Chelsea, but I loved what it was. And we've got that elite manager like in Antonio Conte. And he is going to be able to drive that. So, yes, we need players. Yes, we need to improve the squad. But if we can get up another 5% as a team, that's huge. That's huge. And it's not about they can't get up for the Europa Conference League as much as getting up for the Champions League. Even playing the song, it's just if your fans are feeling it, a majority of the fans are feeling it. Some of the players might and might not be. Yes, they're professionals, but they want to be in the big games. Kane signing a new contract or staying with Tottenham is about winning trophies, but it's also about dining at the big table. He wants to be against 23rd in the Ballon d'Or. You're having a laugh. He wants to be in a top 5. He wants to win it. He's never going to do that if you're not.
He wants that Champions League Golden Boot as well. One season, he'd love to have that on his resume. And Lee, just to add to that, in these conference games, and you're talking about players not getting up for it, we didn't even have the full capacity open for some of these games. If we had Champions League, we would have the full house, the light show, the crowd roaring, and also Champions League gets Daniel Levy nearer to that price that's being quoted of £30 million per season over 10 years for the naming rights. He's not going to get that without Champions League. So these are all the things that you have to add into this debate to how the club progresses forward.
Even before, like when Conte came into the football club, and I was absolutely totally wrong, and very, very happy to be wrong, by the way, always, by the way, as long as it benefits Tottenham. But I didn't think there's no chance that he was coming, right? But he did, and he's come, and he's here, and he's our manager, and he's amazing, he's top 5 manager in the world. We all knew, and we all still know that we need to strengthen. So that hasn't changed, regardless if we get in the top 4 or not. We are all still expecting in January to go and spend some money and to go and bring some players in. And we might nick one decent player, maybe a couple of squaddies. We might get two or three Briggins in. Can't see that personally, but we might. And then we go again in the summer. But we've got to invest in the squad. So by the time the summer comes for the next year of Champions League, we won't have this squad anyway, Rick. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Yeah,
summer transfer window and Conte all over this team. So I think we'd be in a much better position if we did qualify for the Champions League next year.
Jason, I constantly hear that we're not good enough for the top 4, and it's right. We can sit here and say, well, we're not good enough for it. But look at the teams around us. You're telling me West Ham are really good enough for it? West Ham have just been held at home by Brighton. They got beat at home by Brentford. They've just lost to Wolves. They've won 8 games this season. Tottenham have won 8 games this season. So why are they more suited to it than us? Leicester. You ask people, Leicester are a better club than Tottenham. They're 6 points behind us in the bottom half of the table. So why do they deserve it? So, we can always look at how bad we are. And I accept it. We're not a great side at all. But there's not a lot of other great teams apart from those top 3 in the league. Are you telling me Arsenal? Are you telling me Arsenal have looked probably as good as others of late? But then they've just gone to Man United. They've just gone to Everton, failed. Held at home by Palace. So they had their little run, but there's no club that really, if you take the Tottenham blinkers off, tell me one side that's better than us that's definitely deserves a place in the top four. There isn't.
No.
And on that as well, if you do take the Tottenham blinkers off, and it'd be interesting because there's a few like rival fans that come in and watch us and listen to us, which is always baffles me. But you're here, so enjoy yourselves. But what I was going to say is that if you look at it from a rival fan perspective, do not tell me that they ain't worried that we've got Conte as our manager, because Piers Morgan, and we all know that he supports that look down the road. He wanted to sack Arteta and get Conte in before he come to us. He tweeted about it the other day. They're worried. Everyone's worried about Conte turning up at our football club. They are.
We've got the best manager out of that top three, who are streets ahead of the rest. We've got the best manager by far.
100%.
Yeah, and also going just quickly with West Ham, they're in a bit of trouble now. They've just lost off Bonner and Kurt Zouma for the best part of 12 weeks. It's their first choice centre back pairing. So I can imagine that will affect their performances as well, which again gives us a bit more of a chance to grab that full spot.
It's interesting. What I want to know, we'll go on you on this, Jace. What do you think Conte's priority is this season? What does he want? What does top four?
I think he'd see his biggest achievement as getting in that top four, because he wants to. He's a world-class manager, and like Kane, they want to be he wants to finish in that so that he can think, right, we can build a competitive squad for next year to really have a go at something bigger, and at least get Tottenham back to where we were when he was at Chelsea. As he said, we used to play Tottenham and they were a major side, and we've gone behind that. So I think he wants to be competitive for the big prizes, but I think if you said to him finishing the top four, he'd look at that as a huge success at the moment. But look, for me, I honestly believe whenever this question has come up, the trophy or the top four, I've always gone for the top four. But I honestly believe that with a run of knocking out West Ham, and it would likely be Chelsea or Arsenal both times, because that's the Spursy way to do it. We'll have to beat all three of them to win it. I think the confidence you've gained from that would give you a massive, massive chance of finishing in that top four. I think, if we were playing Leicester in the quarters, semi-final against Wolves, final against Aston Villa, that feel-good factor is totally different to doing West Ham, Chelsea and Arsenal in a run to win a trophy. Massive difference. And then, as I say, the supporters would then bin the FA Cup, because you've done those three. You've done Arsenal or Chelsea.
Wouldn't we be hungry for more, though? Wouldn't we be hungry for more, even? You win that first one. We've always about trophies. You win that first one. Yeah, of course you would. But
what I mean is, if the feel-good factor in February is you've just beaten Arsenal or Chelsea in a cup final, I don't honestly think the fans will go ballistic if you then get knocked out by Wolves or Southampton in a quarter-final of an FA Cup when you're sitting fourth in the league with a trophy in the bank. So that's what I mean. Win that, and you can just be pure, clear focus on that Premier League spot. And then you can start to really satisfy Conte and everything. Yeah.
Okay, guys, just to finish up then, we're going to try and predict Spurs' next game. Let's start with...
This is a new prediction on the show.
We can't do results, so we're now
predicting if we're going to play.
Frankie, we'll start with you, mate, because you're scheduled for the next one. So will you be at the King Power this time next week, Frankie? Yes or no?
I don't know. I don't know, Rick. I don't know. But I got my first prediction right on the last show I've done. I said 2-3-0 against Norwich. So if we go to Leicester, that's a tricky one. I'd love to say a win, but I think possibly a score draw if we go to Leicester. Wouldn't be a terrible result, but
will you be there, Frankie? Do you think that will be? Do you reckon that will be our next game? Really, ultimately, at the moment as things stand, do you think that will be our next game?
I don't know. As I said, I've said it about 5 or 6 or 7 times on this show alone. We will know a lot more at the end of the weekend, depending on the negative cases that come back. So I can't tell you the answer to that, mate.
Okay, predicting the game, not the result. Let's come around to Jason next. Jace, what's our next game going to be?
Chelsea on the 23rd of January.
There you go. That'd be lovely. So we got all some new players in. That'd be lovely. Couple of those new centre backs.
My gut feeling is it will be Liverpool. Gut feeling.
Really? Yeah, you reckon that far down the line, Liverpool?
Well, because I think I wouldn't be surprised.
That'll mean the Carabao Cup tie is also rescheduled as well, right?
No,
because
sorry,
Liverpool's first.
West Ham.
Liverpool's first. Sorry, Liverpool's first, 19th. Yeah.
I just get the feeling that Leicester's cases might go up as well, and it may well be that Leicester asked for that game to be off over Tottenham. As Frankie says, we don't know where we are, but my gut feeling is that it will be Liverpool will be the next game.
Yeah, again, for the comments there, West Ham on the 22nd, Liverpool on the 19th, as things stand. Lee, what do you reckon? What's going to happen?
I think our man Frankie Major is not going to be travelling to Leicester and everyone else. I actually applied for a ticket as well, but I didn't have enough loyalty points to get one. I think Chris Callan's got his tickets come through as well. So I don't think our amazing away support is going to be travelling. I agree with Jace. Annoyingly, I think it will be Tottenham-Liverpool. And I say annoyingly because I don't think there'll be some of them players that won't have done a training session until the day before that game. But my gut feeling is that'll be the next game. That's what I can see. And that means that we'll have 3 Premier League fixtures, Brighton, Leicester and Burnley, that we would need to rearrange by the end of for the end of the season. Which is pretty crazy because I tell you just quickly, I know want to finish, but if you scroll all the way down, you look at the fixtures, that is a massively favourable finish to the season because it's already pretty good. We've already got the likes of the games that we've just played, the Brentfords and the Norwiches and the Leeds at the end of that season. So if they bolt all them other games on, we're going to have like double Burnley. We're going to have like a Leeds. We're going to have a Brentford and a Norwich and a Leicester and a Brighton, double Brighton, all the way down the end of the fixture. It's all
shaping up, isn't it? It's all shaping up for us to win it.
Just quickly, we've got hope.
Just said it. Conte's winning the league this year. That's what you just said, right?
Do you know what, guys? We've got hope that we get lots of negative cases back at the end of this weekend, and then we can get back in the training ground next week. If that's the case, and they can train together before that Liverpool game, then that gives me a bit more confidence that we're not going to get absolutely battered.
But I think even with Conte in there, Frankie, listen, he will set us up to be hopefully hard to beat. He'll make us up to be hard to beat, won't he?
The 3 at the back suited us. The 3 at the back has suited us defensively. Obviously, with what you would say, not necessarily 2 attack-minded central midfielders sitting in front of that back 3 or 5. Yeah. So, I mean, Antonio Conte doesn't necessarily, his teams don't tend to get rolled over, do they? 3 or 4-0.
No, they don't.
But we need to get back into that training ground. Obviously, when it's safe enough to do so, we need to get back in that training ground as soon as possible for this winter schedule.
Totally agree. The Premier League took that decision to postpone that Brighton game, following guidance from medical advisors, with the health and safety of the players being the priority. Of course, again, that game also, as we said, Brighton to be rescheduled. I mean, like I said, I think from what we've seen, the Premier League, at least as one of the organisations, they do tend to move fairly quickly in terms of getting to the right decision. And ultimately, that's what we want to see, right? So I think at the moment, it's safe to say, who knows what's going to happen. One thing we do know is Tottenham Hotspur, like I say, will be back in action, hopefully in the near future. We are returning this Saturday for a very special crossover show. Myself and Jason on the screen there are going to be joining Vasconi and the guys over at the Tottenham podcast for a crossover show on a Saturday night special. Of course, listen, we'll see what happens over the course of the next few days with Tottenham. Plenty of content to come. We have got a massive Christmas special coming our way, which our own Jason is currently writing up the script for. Always the man we can rely on.
That'll be a miserable show then.
No, it won't, mate. It'll be bloody awesome.
Tongi and Dombele's highlights of the season. That'll be. We might finally get a show in 5 minutes.
Wait a minute and a half that.
Tongi's dressed as Santa, delivering presents. Yeah, okay, we'll have that one.
We'll have to make it 10 minutes by sticking in a Gio Lo Celso comp as well, won't we?
Make it 7. Make it 7.5 because Gio can't possibly do the whole game. I mean, make it 7.5, mate.
It's true.
We'll see what we can find, but get the Christmas hats at the ready. As always, listen, our regulars back on the last one on Spurs. You've been asking where our regulars are. Here they are, all in one go. The brilliant Frankie Major. Frankie, lovely to have you on, mate. We're going to wish you all the best. You'll be back on this, of course, very, very soon. And if we don't see you now, then obviously you'll be up there, hopefully at the King Power, bringing home 3 points for Tottenham. Believing that game will hopefully go ahead, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, mate. And always good to do the show, especially with Jason Lee. It's just a shame that we haven't got any matches to talk about, it seems now, for the next week or so. But we just got to stay positive and realise that nothing is ever easy when you support Tottenham Hotspur or simple. So we've got to just accept it, I think.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And I'll say, I mean, again, I spoke to Ant this morning. For his heart rate, bless him, this isn't a bad thing, right? I know as much as he wants to see Spurs play, we can all safely, let's say, have no ruining of the early December period. Jace, lovely to have you back. I've got you with me on Saturday as well. Jace, I guess it's just a case of seeing how this all plays out, right, in the next few days?
Yeah, that's all you can do. And if people think I'm miserable about Tottenham, I'm just about to watch that test match and watching Rory Burns open the batting. I tell you, I despise Rory Burns more than I despise Tongi and Dombele. I'll leave it at that.
And that is a bit. I can tell you that is a lot coming from there. You know, that's the case with Dombele. Lee McQueen, the crazy train driver of this crazy train itself of Conte's train. And the Amel, where are we going, Lee, this season? We've had a snow off, of course. We've now had COVID, obviously outbreaks. It's just you don't know where this is going to go next, do you? Really, Spurs. You just never know where it's going to go next.
I think what's nice about the whole thing, though, if I can use that in terms of the whole COVID thing, is that it feels like that we are on that upward trajectory. There's no doubt about that. I'm excited again, singing, trying to get new songs in the South Stand against Norwich the other day. A Moura song after he scored, singing our heart out, trying to get that whole piece going back, and it feels like it's getting back there for everybody. So look. I do hope everybody that has got COVID has recovers really quickly. I've had it; it's not very nice. So recover as quickly as possible. Get back, get safe, get well, and get back playing for Tottenham Hotspur because we cannot wait to cheer you all on. So stay safe, people.
Amen. Totally agree. Echoing Lee's words from Lee, from Frankie, from Jason, myself, guys. And I say, importantly, keep safe, keep well. To the Spurs squad, to our manager, to everybody connected with Tottenham. Listen, we wish everybody a speedy recovery right now. And we look forward to talking about all things Tottenham in the most positive light as possible. As always, keep safe, keep well, and come on, you Spurs.